Welcome to the Pool Builder Podcast, presented by River Pools, where we have one mission: to elevate the swimming pool industry. Real conversations with industry experts on topics that will help you become a more successful pool builder. So get ready to get your learning on. Now, here's your host, Jason Hughes.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Pool Builder Podcast. Today, our guest is Brian Van Bauer. Brian has over 45 years of professional experience in the swimming pool, spa, and water feature industry. He's currently active with two companies. He's president of Aquatic Consultants, Inc., a Miami, Florida-based international consulting design firm specializing in upscale and unusual pool and waterscape designs. Brian's also past president and co-founder with partner Skip Phillips of Genesis 3, an international company specializing in instructional and educational progressive schooling for those involved in the design, engineering, and construction of swimming pools, spas, water features, and outdoor living areas. So Brian, welcome. It's definitely an honor to have you on the Pool Builder Podcast today.
Glad to be here.
I've been following you since 2008. I just read one of the keynotes that you gave at the Texas Pool and Spa Show, and I was there for that, and that was also where I took my first Genesis 3 class. I took the Genesis 3 construction school, and I'll tell you that I walked away from that inspired, and what I took away with it more than anything else was, I think, permission to go out and just try to perform at the highest level possible, and base our company on our own standards, not by the standards set by the status quo. So you've had a big impact on me personally. You've had a big impact on our business. So I just want to thank you for that, for all that you've done personally and with Genesis 3 over the years.
No, I appreciate that. It's my pleasure.
So really interested in digging in here with you and finding out a little bit more about you, how you came into the pool industry, and some of the things that you've accomplished. So how were you initially introduced to the pool industry?
Like most people in our industry, I got into it by osmosis. You just wake up one day and you smell like chlorine, and you got a 8 to 16 telly pole in the back of the truck, and there you are. Actually, for me, it started with working at a hotel pool on Miami Beach in Sunny Isles area, and I was the assistant pool manager, and interesting job, but it introduced me to pools, and it gave me an opportunity to meet a lot of people and so forth. And I graduated to pool manager and was in charge of two pools. If there was a pool god, they probably would have come down and yanked me out of there because I was responsible for gas chlorine. I'm not sure at that time I even knew what it was, and I mishandled it. I probably could have wiped out everybody on the pool deck and reduce the French-Canadian population by all. But I made it, and after that, I decided that I liked swimming pools, and I went to work for a pool service company in North Miami Beach called Dysart Pools, and got involved in pool service as my Genesis partner, Skip Phillips, has the same background. We both came from a service background, and I did pool service for a couple of different companies, and then, like many people, I one day decided I could do it myself. And after my 1-year non-compete ran out, I approached some of my old customers and signed up people and started with one service account, and worked up to a little over 500 with 20 employees and a couple of retail stores, and decided to build. And then all of a sudden, I took the plunge for swimming pool construction, took my Florida pool contractor's license for commercial pools, and passed that, and decided I'd build pools. And I continued to do that for a number of years and enjoyed doing pools. And at some point, it occurred when I was on a riverboat cruise for a company called Horner Equipment out of Fort Lauderdale, and now called Horner Express worldwide, and Horner Express. And they took a group of us on a riverboat cruise in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And I remember it vividly. I was up on the upper deck drinking, as all good pool people do. And we're riding up and down the waterway in Fort Lauderdale looking at fairly expensive homes at the time. And at the time, that expensive home was probably $1.5 million or 2 million, and today they might be 18 million for all I know. And something struck me that these beautiful homes with beautiful landscaping and so forth all had extremely ordinary pool projects, basic, and so they were either just a plain, simple rectangle with ugly-looking materials, bad color choices, or even worse, a freeform pool that they insisted on calling a kidney. And I'm not a big fan of body part pools, and if I was, it sure as heck wouldn't be a kidney. So I kept thinking to myself, why did this occur? Why did people that have the wherewithal to have a home on the water have to have a pretty ordinary pool? And then it dawned on me that was all they had been offered. That's all our industry presented. Those were the choices. And so I decided then and there that I needed to learn about design so that I could help people get projects that had more interest, worked better, looked better, functioned longer, and did more things for them. You know, and integrated today's outdoor lifestyle with the pool. So I went on a quest to start learning, and then that was the genesis of Genesis, if you will. After a meeting with Skip Phillips and our previous partner David Tischerman in the Bahamas for, at the time, NSPI. I was chairing the design award committee, and Skip and David and I decided that we'd form a company together to call it Genesis. And then right after that, Skip went to the NSPI meeting, to the education committee meeting, and asked them if they would do classes on landscape architecture, color theory, and so forth, because we wanted to learn more. And they said absolutely not, that there was no market for that. So then Skip, in his brazen California way, told them that, well, the hell with you then, we'll do it.
Right.
And then he mentioned it to us later, and we were all in kind of shock, but we had a mission. So that's how Genesis started. And we decided that we would do programs that expanded the range of topics and the depth of knowledge that our industry needed, because there hasn't been a lot of credible education available. Most of the education in our industry, even today, occurs from people sharing knowledge, people from within the industry. Often it's thinly veiled product presentations. Obviously, someone who manufactures lights knows all about lights, and there's nothing wrong with that. And often you could get very good information, but it wasn't enough for us. And we wanted to learn from people outside our industry, perhaps have a landscape architect come in and talk about how things should be situated in an outdoor environment, and what direction might be best. And we got involved in things, kind of diverse topics like feng shui. I wasn't certain how valuable some of the topics would be. The first time that Tischerman suggested that we learn about color theory, I'm thinking, what do we need to know about color theory for? After all, we can put nice red brick on a pool with blue butterfly tile and a white finish and call it perfect. And then it dawned on me that there was a lot to that, and then I started learning about the influence that color could have on how people feel. And the next thing you know, I found great value in it, and I've used it in meetings with architects around the world, and been able to come up with things that I wouldn't have even dreamed of prior to that. So it's been a great thing, great run, and I'm fortunate to be involved with some people that worked well together. Skip and I work extremely well together, and Tischerman in the beginning also. And I'm glad that people like you go to our programs and come out, and you're going to have to be the next leaders. And we're anxious to see people catch fire. And it's interesting because a lot of people come to classes and then they leave there going, I don't need that, I already know everything. And other people come and they go, wow, there's so much that I didn't know.
Exactly. Opens up a new world.
Yeah, exactly.
That this is really fascinating because when you all got together at the genesis of Genesis, I
Yeah.
mean, you were already masters in terms of the industry. Industry wide, you were already at the top. Um, but I had always assumed that you all already knew all this stuff and you were just imparting it to the rest of the world. And what you're saying is that you knew an awful lot, but you knew what you didn't know and you found the resources to be able to teach that and you learned it along with everybody else. Is that
That's
right?
correct. Yeah, that's absolutely correct. And no one got a buy in our system, but everybody takes all the classes and has to continue to take them. And we did it because we wanted the information.
Right.
And one of the things that I've learned is that I learn something every day, even if it's I shouldn't have gone to a program or something, but I always learn something. And we wanted this information. We wanted it for us. We wanted to be better at it, and wanted to be able to sit down with a group of architects and landscape architects and interior design people and hold our own on a design level, not just on a construction. We didn't want to just spend our we obviously want to look at all the facets of what we do as an industry. So that would include design and construction and basic hydraulics and then energy efficient hydraulics and all the other things that go along with our projects today. But we didn't feel like we were able to get that information through the channels that existed, and that's why we took all the courses.
Wow.
And continue to take them.
Yeah. That's incredible. I mean, just there's no school that exists. We don't have the information, but we're going to create something to fill the need regardless of what it takes. I think that's just inspiring, to see that's, I've never even heard of that happen, not in the pool industry, but anywhere. And, it's, and I know that when I go through and I read your bio, I read, Skip Phillips' bio and all the Genesis affiliated people, it always talks about how they have been certified through the program. And you talk about it in such a way that it's not a gimme. And, so there is, you did put the blood, sweat, and tears into the classes.
We did, but our industry in the past, in an effort to give out as much information as possible, put on programs. But if you sat in the back of the room sleeping, you still got a certificate. And
Yes.
We have tests, and we wanted to maintain a certain level of performance. So anytime we came up with an idea for a new class, we would hunt for the person that we thought was the best to teach it, whether they were within the industry or not.
Yeah.
And by doing that, we also figured that these people shouldn't just do it for fun or for personal gain. So even though they might get some recognition from being a Genesis instructor, we felt like if it was going to continue, that they needed to be compensated. And of course, that we wanted to be in nice places. That was another thing that Skip always held to, and that is that he didn't want to stay in bad hotels and eat bad food and have a bad time while he was learning and so forth. So we wanted nice venues and nice events and all that. So that comes at a price, and so some of our classes are, cost a fair amount of money. And imagine how somebody feels if they spent $3,500 to take a 2-day course, and then at the end of it they fail. And
yeah, and I've certainly experienced that. I mean, where there's no cost, there's no value. So in terms of you're going to get into it, get out of it what you put into it. And I know I'm taking 2 classes in New Orleans in a few weeks, Introduction to Perspective Drawing and the Design Elements of Design class. I've been stoked about this all year.
Both good classes too.
Yeah, I'm so excited about it. And I want to change gears for a second, if I could. And on a technical side, this is just from my own personal experience. You started building portable spas, then you transitioned into in-ground spas. And on at least in our little world, we've had a challenge with in-ground spas in terms of, I guess, setting. There's a couple things. One is they're not an above-ground portable spa. They don't perform the same way. They're not as ergonomic. We've had challenges communicating that to the client. Our spas end up being more expensive than a showroom spa, mainly because they're fiberglass, and that's just the way it ends up being. But so we've encountered a lot of challenges with that. So did you encounter challenges when you transitioned to in-ground spas? And if you did, how did you deal with it?
Good question. We certainly had challenges. The in-ground spa market, we represented fiberglass manufacturer and then later acrylic, and we realized, like in the acrylic fiberglass market, in the above ground market, particularly today, but even back then, they came pre-plumbed, pre-jetted, pre all the equipment underneath, and often had more jets than people would typically put in if you were building one in ground because of the
Mm-hmm.
involvement and so forth. And so we dealt with those issues, but we still wanted to make it an environment regardless of what the vessel was. And by that I mean that we've always said, even in the swimming pool market, uh, I've done pools in different mediums. We're not opposed to fiberglass. We're not opposed to vinyl because it's the vessel.
Right.
And when you look at an in-ground spa, the fiberglass or acrylic shell is replacing a concrete shell with a finish on it.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else is the same. So then you have to look at the pros and cons of things, and we sold off of those pros and cons. So okay, so now we have contoured seats that help you stay in your seat even though you got jets blowing on your back and so forth. And we've got recessed jets into the fiberglass instead of having a jet that protrudes slightly from the tiled or concrete or plastered surface.
Right.
And we sold off of those things, and we talked about lower maintenance and all of those things. And today the challenge for me, I did fairly well in ground spas, and it helped me because you're still creating a water environment. So we still had patio, we still had the softscape landscaping that went around it. We still had the accessory areas, bars and dining areas and roofed areas and so forth. So it got me into thinking about creating an entire environment.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a good thing. And that helped me transition into pools because it was just a bigger hole in the ground with water with the same environment around it.
Yeah.
And a little more opportunity for aesthetic experimenting.
Mm-hmm. Great. Your service company grew and became quite large.
Yeah.
For the service oriented business people out there, is there any advice that you'd like to share with them?
Well, I can share the one secret that I discovered by mistake, which a lot of the things that I've learned over the years have come by mistakes, mostly my mistakes. I'm trying to remember the old adage is that smart people learn from their mistakes and smarter people learn from the mistakes of others. And so I tell people that when I do a program, because I've made lots of mistakes. So if you want to sit and let me tell you what they were, you don't have to do those. You can skip over those and make some other new ones. But years ago, when I had my service repair, we had divisions in the company. We did pool service, we did repair, we had a retail store, and we did renovations, and we did construction. So we had all these different divisions. And to make a long story short, we came upon a time where it looked like our repair work was dwindling, and we were going to get completely caught up, and which would have been the first time in our company history that we were like, come in and go, I have no tickets to go on today, no jobs.
Mm-hmm.
And so I went into a slight panic mode and thought, well, I got trucks and I got people and I need work.
Mm-hmm.
So this worked extremely well for me. What I did is, as the owner of the business, I took our entire list of service customers, started alphabetically, and I placed a call to them, and I said, hi, this is Brian Van Bauer, owner of Van Bauer Pool Patio and Spas. And I wanted to introduce myself to you, and I wanted to offer you a free consultation pool inspection. And I'd like to set up a time when you'll be home, you and your husband or whatever, so that I can come by and meet you in person. Thank you for your business, and then take a look at your pool and answer any questions that you have about your pool and your pool equipment, your plumbing or your sanitizing system, anything, and take a look at it all. And most people were very receptive to that idea. And
Hmm.
so I go out to the home and I'd introduce myself and help do some relationship building. And then I'd look at their pool equipment and I'd look at the pool with them and I'd talk about things. And often the pump would be old and rusty in those days, and or the piping would be real small, or the light would be out, or they didn't have a heater. And then I'd tell them about things like chlorine generation, salt conversion. I tell them about ozone or different things, that whatever things I could think that might benefit them. And lo and behold, people would like say, "Well, I'd like to have that. I'd like to get that new pump."
Hmm.
And this is even before we had variable speed pumps and things. This
Right.
goes back a way. So
Yeah.
today, that's a huge selling point,
Yeah.
energy efficiency, and everybody's into that. But at the time, just the idea of upgrading to a plastic pump that wasn't going to make the walls of the pool rusty where the inlets were and so forth, and changing the valves to make them easier, putting in a better heater, using electric heat pumps when those were appropriate, and people were signing up. And I want you to know that I never got through the A's of the alphabet in my
Wow.
time in business, because then we were all of a sudden loaded with work.
Wow.
Everybody wanted almost everything that I mentioned. That, oh yeah, we'd love to have that.
Hmm.
So often the thing that you're looking for hardest is right in front of your face. And
Yeah.
and so when you have a base of clients, and one of the things I've always loved about pool service is that it's ongoing, it's dependable, and it's good cash flow.
Hmm.
And you also have a large basis of clients that hopefully like your company and like what you do. So to utilize them, to be able to go and draw from them and offer them all the things you have, it is a great resource that often you forget to take advantage of. So
Yeah.
by mistake, I discovered it out of need,
Hmm.
and I never had to go back to that. Fortunately, I never went back and started going further into the A's. But the truth is that I think that if someone wanted to, even if you have a fairly small base of clients, and you make sure that they know everything about the offerings that are available, you might find that your business with them grows tremendously. So
I really like how you just took the bull by the horns there, because I think a lot of business owners, at least in my experience, if things aren't maybe as going as well as they like, they're just kind of like they'll continue to just sit and wait for things to change. And in my experience is sometimes you have to be the catalyst. You have to be the catalyst, and you really leveraged your position in the company to go out, and strengthen a relationship and also drum up some business. So that's a great takeaway for anybody out there who needs to do the same thing. So now from the service company, let's fast forward to, years later, you've won 100 design awards, so was there like a landmark project or a big break, or was there one event, or how did you transition from where you were to the 100 design awards?
well, what I did is I used my basic business premise, and that is I figured out what I wanted to do, and then I figured out what it would cost, and then I figured out what my overhead was, and then I figured what would be a reasonable return on this investment that I've made in my business and in the knowledge that I have and in the level of detail. And then I added that on, and then I sold it to the client by telling them that's what it's worth, and they bought it. And that was kind of novel for them. Because they often priced their pools based on what other people got for theirs. So they'd go, well, company ABC gets 18,000, so we can do it for 17. And
Yeah.
I never once wanted to do that. I always wanted to figure out what things were worth, and then add on a reasonable and fair margin or profit for myself.
Yeah, and I think that curse still, we could call it a curse or a blessing, but it still exists
It
in our
does.
industry, and it's the prevalent mindset. And I think we just in general, we just shoot ourselves in the foot so much because we allow, what we do to be dictated by others, by other
Yeah.
people in the industry.
Yeah.
And we take the same approach that you just shared. We start with let's build a package. Let's build a pool that we would want. Let's build it the way we would want it. Let's price it accordingly. And, and you set yourself apart. I know that you're a big believer in being different than everybody else. And, so that does set you apart. And, and that somehow that shines through. It can shine through as part of your marketing, but I think it just comes through everything that you emanate as a business, and people respond to it, and you earn their business, and it's worked for us.
Yeah. And I think that clients appreciate it. Everyone feels obligated to try to get, quote, a good deal. Everybody feels like, even people with lots of money take pride in the fact they go, yeah, I got, a new Maserati, but I only paid 320. And they so at whatever level you're working at, everybody likes to get a good deal. My outlook on pool construction has always been that I wanted to present ideas that people maybe didn't think of on their own, because that's part of the service I offer. But I also wanted to create environments that change the way people interact with each other in their home. And in doing that made me kind of experiment with some things that hadn't been done before. Most recently, like we came up with a couple of things, handrails. Handrails up until a few years ago were notoriously ugly. Looked very much like a hospital, and were hot to touch and so forth.
Yeah.
And then we decided, well, if we're going to have a handrail, let's do something artistic and let's make it out of solid stainless. And so we fashioned some big arcing handrails that we could put like in a shallow lounging area and bend it into a nice radius all the way down into the pool, and it looked very artistic. It looked like artwork floating on the pool, particularly on a perimeter overflow vessel or something where you have a clean reflective surface, and then you see this artwork of some kind sticking out of it. And now Bobe manufactures those as rad rails, they call them, and they're cool looking. And several of the companies, S.R. Smith and some of them, have come up with nicer looking handrails over a period of time. But it's something that we did back then, and it's what I call paying the front runner fee.
Yeah, and I think there's other costs for being a front runner. I think that in our industry, if we try to, this has just been my experience, and I think Skip's kind of shared the same thing, but as we kind of, as one assumes a leadership role and steps out and tries to elevate, I think that you tend to get beat up a little bit in our industry. And, so it's not just a financial thing. It's not just a research or R&D thing. I think that it's it kind of, as an industry, I think we have a gravity that exists that we try to pull each other down as the monkey trying to get to the top, we keep pulling each other down, and that's been my experience. But I think I personally see a shift happening, and I attribute a lot of that to what y'all are doing. I think that I've been able to establish relationships with a lot of, other, people that have, that are coming into the industry, that have been in the industry, that are interested in developing and evolving. And I think that that you all really set the tone for that, and almost, like I said earlier, gave us permission to do it.
Well, I appreciate that. I think that the difference in the people you just described, often these are Genesis students, and we have manufacturers that want to be in the Genesis Pavilion at the show coming up in New Orleans, and the reason they want to be in there is obviously to support Genesis, but that doesn't really buy us anything. We don't make additional money or anything off of them being in our area. But the real reason they're there is that generally the people in our industry going to Genesis classes are people willing to spend time and money to get smarter, and they're actually interested in the end result. And so when they walk up to a booth, they're not just kicking tires and taking a water wiggle and going to Disneyland. They actually walk up and go, what do you got that I can use and what's new, and show me what you have, and they're interested. And you notice around our booth, one of the things that's always impressed me is people are coming up with sets of plans and sitting down and sharing information and getting fired up about what they do. And that hasn't always been the norm. And so I think that there's a whole group of people that are aspiring to be something different than what we've always been.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I think sets Genesis apart, being the educational arm that provides them with the education that they need. Even in my own company, two of the guys that work at Aquatic Consultants in Miami here with me have their masters in landscape architecture, which is a pretty severe educational process to go through.
Yeah, that's a big deal.
What Genesis did is take college level courses, like color theory is a good example, where that's a long course that goes in a lot of different directions, and cut it down to a course that's focused on color theory as it relates to water environments.
Right.
And so they're going through, Andy and Miguel, the two that I'm talking about. Andy's our vice president and Miguel's our senior design associate. They're going to Genesis classes. They'll both be at the show this year and are going through the system. Andy's already achieved SWD, and they when they go to a class, it's much more focused on exactly what they want to know. Swimming pools and how it relates to creating outdoor environments, and I think they get a lot more out of it because of that.
I just on my own, I've bought I don't know how many design landscape theory books that I've purchased on my own and just tried to go through it, and maybe 5%. I mean, is from general principles. The principles always apply, but when it comes down to details and specifics, it is hard. It's almost impossible to cull through all the data out there and distill it into a way that makes sense for pools. The only place to find that's with Genesis, and so, I could study at nights, on my own for years, or go take, a 2-day class and get 10 times more out of it.
And the other part that comes with that is if you go to the show or you go to one of those classes, the odds are that the other, 14 people in the room or whatever are going to be people that have the same outlook on the industry that you do, and
Yes.
are people willing to share information. So there's a network, and it's kind of like a fraternity or sorority. I don't want to leave women out of the formula there, but it's a group of people that have a common bond because of their desire to improve themselves.
Yeah.
And it's contagious, and it's great to have that network. It's one of the biggest advantages. So, the Genesis Forum on the internet is a tool that should cost you a lot of money, because I've seen people post little things on there and get a response right away by one of our guys, and it says, yeah, I did a project just like that. You've done a new idea, and here's the plans.
Yeah.
And that's really a great tool for anybody who wants to do top work. And I one of the things that really pleases me is the level of projects today around the world is tremendous. And it's gone up 10 times from 10 or 15 years ago. The quality, the detail, the different types of stuff. It's fun for me, having been around Skip and done all that. Skip and I always did what we started off calling it water in transit, and later called it beauty of the edge, but programs on water overflowing in different directions, perimeter overflow, vanishing edges, elevated perimeter overflows, and all those different things. And we talked about the Lautner knife edge in respect for John Lautner, the architect who did the first one in the United States after they had already been done in France. And people architects will call me and they go, yeah, we're thinking of doing a Lautner edge on the pool. And you're like, yeah, I know about that.
Yeah.
know about that Lautner edge. And just recently, in the last couple of years, maybe 4 years or 5 years, we developed a grass edge perimeter overflow Lautner edge,
Mm-hmm.
and we did a project with where we had a piece of stainless steel. It was bent, and it matched the granite, of our Lautner knife edge, and then it was deep enough so you had room for soil and lawn.
Wow.
And we did a project so you have water and grass side by side, and we put the lip on the one edge a quarter of an inch higher than the inside edge, so it stops the wave action, so we're not watering the lawn with pool water with wave action. And anyway, so we invented this grass edge overflow detail, and so just recently, one of the baseball players got a pool that has the grass edge on it, and everybody's called me to ask me if that's one of our projects, and it's not. So then I happened to see the plans. So someone knocked off our grass edge in every aspect and did it, and I suppose that I should be flattered, but I would have rather they called and got all the details right.
Yeah.
There's still
Right.
a learning curve, and I've already screwed up enough times to get it right. And then Bobe perfected it. They're manufacturing the grass edge and selling it as a kit with the hardware.
Wow.
And so it's on their website and all that. But they even make radius grass edge details.
Wow.
So, but it's fun to be part of something that seems to be elevating an industry.
Mm-hmm.
And to see that effect and to have people come and tell you, like you said, that it altered your personal life and your business life because it affected you and you realized there was something more out there. For me, that's very rewarding, and we love to to hear that, and then to see people doing projects. Some of the younger guys that are involved in Genesis that have achieved platinum level and so forth, that are doing cool projects and doing things a little bit different, and you see this and it's exciting, and the Skip and I, when we were doing programs early on, people were asking us. There was a whole group of old timers in the pool industry that said, aren't you afraid of sharing your information on these things that you're doing with everyone else? Because then they'll do it and they'll probably offer it cheaper than you. That mentality has been pervasive over the years. They don't tell them, how to do it right.
It's incredible. We had the similar story, but not with regards to construction details or the stuff that y'all teach. Ours, we've done this from a marketing standpoint. We've taken what we've done digitally from a marketing standpoint, and we shared it with the industry. I mean, we've taught almost every trade show since 2009. We've been involved teaching people how to do what we've done online, and we get the same thing. Aren't you scared that they're gonna? The fact is, the people who really have good intentions and are really interested, they're gonna embrace it and use it, and they're gonna elevate the industry. We're all gonna do it together. But
they might come up with a better way.
But that might be 5% of the industry.
Yeah.
If that. And but that scarcity mentality does hold people back, and it keeps people from, it hurts them. I mean, just speaking from a marketing standpoint, it kills you. You have to be transparent. I mean, people today, in today's information age, people want to know who they're dealing with. They want to know everything about their products. And if you don't tell them, then they're going to find it somewhere else. And I don't want to get off on a marketing tangent, but I think that same principle, that scarcity mentality is present. And, I could talk all day with you, Brian. There's so many things I'd like to go into. I think that for the sake of time, I did want to ask you one last question, and because you literally travel the world. You're all over the place doing amazing projects. So what are some trends that you're seeing that are affecting the industry as a whole?
What strikes me about all these different places, about Germany in particular, Genesis has been doing classes in Germany the last few years, to see some areas have a different take, and Germany is a good example. Germany is they like high quality materials and engineering. So they want to make things out of stainless and bronze.
Mm-hmm.
Matter of fact, they jokingly tell Skip and I sometimes Americans are all plastic. Even and so the thing is that we look at their stuff and see that they make a bronze skimmer, that they're actually using a bronze skimmer on a pool.
Wow.
And we see some of their and yet the Germans came to Genesis for design. And we thought that was a little weird because we looked at you look at German automobiles and things, you think that's design, that's engineered.
That's right.
Well, it's more engineering than design. When we sit with them and they tell us, no, we need to know about your overall design philosophy, and yet we looked at their Riviera Pools is one of the people that's had Genesis do programs. They're near Nordhorn, Germany, and we've been to their office, and I have to tell you that their showroom, by far and away, beyond anything I've seen and any other showroom that I've seen by any pool guy anywhere else. And it has a coffee bar. It has rooms with pools with auto covers. It has a perimeter overflow fiberglass vessel. Has outdoor pools. It has creeks. It has spas. Their spas are phenomenal. And just the overall ambiance. They have towels and changing rooms for people to go there that want to experience the pool before they buy it. And it's just another level. And yet they found that there were areas that we could offer them that they didn't have.
Mm-hmm.
The design programs and so forth, like the one that you're going to, that Elements of Design. They love that program and they felt they needed that. So the heartwarming, interesting part of that is that we all share some of the same problems and challenges in our industry, and there's stuff that all of us could learn from someone else.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one of my long-term goals. It's been a Genesis goal for a number of years, and I think it's going to come to fruition at one point. But I would like to have a worldwide industry summit where everyone sits around a room wearing headsets like you have on, but they're all in their own language. And you have translators, real-time translators, and people can ask questions and share information because that would jump us ahead as an industry. I see some trends. The use of clear panels in pools has been a trend for some time, but it's becoming more prominent and more common. But then just in the last year, we did a pool with a 63-foot by 3-foot clear wall on one side. And
I saw that one. That was gorgeous.
It's a fun pool. But and now I have projects all over with clear panels going in. So I think that's a trend. It's interesting to see what's happened with materials. So if you think back about tile pools, when I was building, particularly in the early 80s, 30% of my projects were all tile pools.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my other guys in the industry were saying, well, how do you get people to pay that money for an all-tile pool? Yeah. And I tell them the benefits and make it sound normal, and then they buy it. And now we got all-tile pools all over the place and a huge range of tiles. And I think they're gorgeous to look at, and you see them all over. You see great big pools with beautiful tiles. Some of the tiles that are out there today, the Light Streams and Oceanside and all those tiles that have beautiful looks to them. And I think the quality of materials is going to continue to go up.
Yeah.
So and who knows what's around the corner? I mean, I'm always looking for new things, and who knows what's coming up next, but I'm ready for it.
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, I feel like we've really touched on some great themes today, and like that, let's keep our eyes open within the industry and always be open to new things.
Yeah.
Let's not be afraid to reach out and do our business the best that we can. And, I just thank you again. I really appreciate your time. I know this is going to benefit a lot of folks out there, and, look forward to what the future holds for you and for the Genesis 3 and the foundation.
Great. Thanks a lot, man.
Okay, so just in conclusion, again, you can subscribe to the Pool Builder podcast on YouTube, iTunes, or Stitcher, and you'll receive our weekly interviews in your inbox. And again, Brian, thanks so much, and
Well,
take
pleasure.
care.